Hello and thank you. Thank you for being here, and I'm very glad to be here too. Yes, I started off with this image because I think it is so extraordinary. Now, what are we looking at? Are we looking at an amazing piece of minimalist sculpture by a brilliant Japanese artist who is currently exhibiting at the Biennale of Sydney? Are we looking at the work of a determined ecological artist who finds his way through the tropical undergrowth and makes amazing works in situ, which he photographs and then posts back to the world, and a la a graffiti artist suddenly disappears again and we don't ever see him? No, we're not. We are looking at the bower of a bird. Everything you're looking at was made by a small black bird with very bright blue eyes. And this was photographed by a guy called Tim Latham, who's a wonderful nature photographer in the forest, the jungles of North Queensland. And here we have, this is a seduction scene. This is what this is all about: love and seduction and courtship and sex. That's what it's doing there. And you can see here all these stones, grey stones, and at the back here you can see the actual bower itself, which is also inlaid with more stones. And then just picked out here, there are just little moments, as it were, little touches of green that just sort of beautifully tone in with this marvellous array. This, of course, takes a long time for the bird to make. It is a very time-consuming and difficult job. He has competitors nearby who are also making exquisite bowers to entrance the females. And not only does he make all of this, the bower inside, the female will arrive, and if she thinks this is rather exquisite, and there's more to it than that, he does some amazing dances for her, he sings incredible songs for her, he mimics other noises and other bird songs for her, so he puts on this extraordinary display. She sits inside watching him, and inside he has also arranged twigs that have like sweet, sticky substance on them, so she can have a little treat to eat while she is watching him perform. And then at the end, if she doesn't like it, she just leaves. And poor guy, he's done all of this, so he's like, let's try again, Or if she thinks it's okay and she approves of this and says, yes, grey and green are just the colours I like this season. I think it's perfectly toned, and I like your construction work as well, my dear. They will mate in that bower and then they separate, and that's the last they see of each other. She makes a very, very simple nest elsewhere. The chicks are born, she feeds them and looks after them. And you look at her nest and you think, well, maybe one artist in the family is enough. Not everybody, wants to go through this. I mean, it's just quite exhausting. There are myriad kinds of bowers I actually had the good fortune to see a bower being made. I was travelling with a friend of mine. We were staying down off the Great Ocean Road near Wye River, and I could see arranged under this bush all these bits of blue, shiny objects, blue plastic, blue pegs, blue this, blue that, and then little bits of yellow. And I said to my friend, is that like rubbish, like someone's thrown it away, except it's all blue? And he said, no, it's a bower. Just wait. And so we waited, and the bird came back and sort of flew in with another blue thing, popped it down and sort of went, yep, okay. And, flew off again. This went on all day, this meticulous care that went into it. And I think even David Attenborough now agrees that bowerbirds are artists. The first person to say that birds had an aesthetic sense was Charles Darwin. He said, what they like, so do we. They create objects, and for some reason or another, we human beings and the birds look at these objects and find them pleasing. Of course, they're not just pleasing for a bird. Indeed, that's a whole course of speculation. Are they pleasing? Certainly for the bowerbird, we have enough evidence to suggest, yes, this bird is making constant and meticulous choices about colour, shape, design, appearance, etc. And writing this book made me ask myself the question, well, if I'm going to say that a bird is an artist, then what's art? What is it? How do we define it? How do we kind of agree, on what it is? And I thought, well, we would agree that it's well made, it's pleasing, it has good design, structure, perhaps engineering, colour scheme, a whole range of things that we would say, aesthetically pleasing. Well, I think in some cases, of course not all cases, but in some cases this can be also ascribed to birds. Now this is also a nest. This is the nest of the striped honeyeater. And I had the great good fortune to hold this nest in my hands when I began doing research on this book at the Melbourne Museum. So look, it's only actually about that big, okay? And as you can see, it's made purely of feathers. They're emu feathers. And this was, the striped honeyeater made this nest on the sort of tri-borders of Queensland, South Australia, New South Wales, at a place called Milparinka, which is close to Tibooburra, which some of you may have heard of Tibooburra. And there's a water hole, there's some water there, which is very important. And the emus go and drink at the water hole. And they obviously either leave their feathers behind or the bird snatches the feathers off them. And they are these long, beautiful, sort of tawny, shimmering kind of feathers that the bird it's built its nest first. You can't actually see the structure of the nest underneath it. It is there, and then it's kind of woven in. There's about 200 or 300 feathers there, and it's woven in out. The two of them, the male and the female, would have done this together, and then they would have come home to find that somebody stole their nest and sent it to the Melbourne Museum, which is how I got to see it. There's unfortunately a lot of thievery that has gone on with nests, which is why they're in a lot of collections. I described this as... how did I describe it in the book? As a purse worthy of an empress stitched by a surrealist seamstress, because it's a beautiful, beautiful object. And the other thing is, when I first started looking at the nests, I remember they delivered this, box to the research room where I was, and I picked the box up and I thought, oh, they've forgotten to put the nests in. It doesn't actually weigh anything. Then I opened it, and there are, of course, 50 nests. No, they don't weigh anything. And the other extraordinary thing is they last. I mean, this one is from either the late 1940s or the early 1950s. If you store a nest properly, and you wait till the little bugs and, the lichen perhaps or whatever live things slowly die, it will last forever. They're not meant to last. I mean, this is a really busy season now. It's July, so the birds are now beginning to, if you notice a lot of bird activity in your neighbourhood, they're beginning to mate and then to breed. They'll be building their nests. The babies will be born in the spring. Then they will be feeding the babies before they fledge. So this is, from now on through to early summer, is the busiest time of the year for birds. And they are ready for it, because it's the time they're going to build their nests and they're going to work together, many of them, doing this. And they have evolved over, millennia, this extraordinary art or craft. They can build things in trees, they build things on the ground, they build them against cliff faces. And I suppose the amazing thing about them is they don't have a lot of failures. And the thing that I really find extraordinary is, like, if you compare... what is art and who is an artist? I mean, human artists work inside a studio, usually protected from the weather, with two hands. Birds work in all weathers with no hands. They just work with a beak and maybe their little feet. And of course, many of the nests have a lovely, and the nest itself, the image, this word nest, what does it mean? It means everything wonderful about home, refuge, sanctuary, family, warmth, protection. I mean, it's become such an incredible symbol of it's just so incredibly evocative. And one of the beautiful things they do to get that rounded shape is they press their own breasts against it, which is, again, it's a kind of a beautiful metaphor of this sort of, this gentleness, but this power, and this sense of, what's going to work and how it will last. At the end of the summer or the end of spring, when the chicks are fledged, most nests will be abandoned. That's it, we don't need this anymore. We'll start again next time. Why abandon it? There's several reasons. Sometimes it's because of predators. They don't want to go back to the same place in case this time around the nest is recognised by predators, the chicks get attacked. There might be, infestations of bugs in the nest. They leave it, so, that can't happen. And the other thing about nests is they're really clean. This is an amazing evolutionary thing. The babies, the chicks, do their poo in what's called a faecal sac. And so the parent picks that up and goes and drops it somewhere, so the nest isn't full of shit, basically. And then when the nestlings get old enough, they just hang their little behinds over the side of the nest and poo that way. So that's why you'll often see a bit of poo spattered on the sides of some nests, because that's the nestlings. Now, the wonderful John Gould. John Gould was an English ornithologist who came to Australia with his wife Elizabeth. Elizabeth was a great artist. This is her work. He was bird mad, and he produced this incredible, I think it's 5 volumes, The Birds of Australia. This is in the 1850s. These books have never been surpassed. Nobody has ever published anything greater about Australian birds than John Gould did back then. So you can see how determined he was. And this is the bowerbird. He shows the bower, he shows the female sitting in the bower, he shows the male at the side looking at the female, he shows the young bird down here, the young male, who is beginning to make a bower out of these blue objects that I talked about before, and shells, sort of thing that Gould himself would have seen. And then we have an older bowerbird at the left-hand side. And as you can see, this is a double-page spread from this wonderful series of books, the Birds of Australia, that John Gould did, and revealed the bird life of Australia to Australians. The other great thing about John Gould was, apart from having Elizabeth to do all the drawings for him because he couldn't draw, he was really infuriated by the way Aboriginal people were being treated by the early settlers. And wherever he could, he would learn Aboriginal names for birds, he would learn about bird mythology, because of course for Aboriginal people the birds are part of their whole landscape, their spiritual life, everything is intertwined. And John Gould was very impressed by that. And Darwin was very similar. They were certainly not hierarchical in that 19th century, oh yes, the savages are down there. Well, in the case of Darwin, the animals are down there. He called his second book The Descent of Man, which infuriated people in the 19th century. The descent of man? What are you talking about? We're at the top of the pinnacle. But that wasn't Darwin's view at all. He didn't see human beings in that way. He saw all of us as being part of an ecology, and all of us should be sharing, respect and dignity and awareness and admiration of one another. He's a really great guy, Darwin. He was just fantastic. Here's another really wonderful nest. This is by a masked weaver from southern Africa. Now, here's again another male who's under quite a lot of pressure to perform. And here we have the masked weaver, and as you can see, he is weaving this extraordinarily dense, tight, intense and beautiful nest. What you can't see is over here there's a whole bunch of females who are all sitting there like, yeah? Let's see what you come up with, boyo. So, and then what he'll do when he's finished this exquisite construction is he will, step back, and the ladies they'll all sort of pop in and out. Yes, it's quite well built, or not. And it's pretty brutal because, if you don't mate in the animal world, basically you die. Like, that's it. You know, everything is about this level of survival and continuity of your species. And so we have here another exquisite, object. And if the female thinks it's up to scratch, she'll move in immediately. And they will mate and they will breed, and they will breed in this amazing construction, which he will make in such a way that at the end of it, of course, you'd think, oh, the egg's going to just drop out of this. I mean, how does all this work? He will often bring it. He'll bring it out in a kind of a cup, so there will be a part of the nest that is actually flat. And then sometimes they make double entrances to confuse predators. So the predator thinks, get in here. No, that's you just hit a blank wall. It's actually, there's actually another entrance where the chicks are kept. So not only are they kind of incredibly smart, about what they do, and I think it's worth remembering, everything you see around you is smart, is a survivor. It doesn't matter if it's a blowfly or a cicada. Everything has survived every possible trial to survive, just like we have, and so they have survived because it's not because they're stupid or lucky. Nothing in nature is lucky, really. Everything is smart. Everything has to determine its environment, the changing seasons, how things are going to work, how will it breed, how will it feed. All these are just daily issues for wild animals, of course, not domesticated animals, but wild animals have to keep thinking that way. And birds don't really want to be tamed. There are some birds that are domesticated, like, budgerigars, but most birds aren't interested in being tamed. They want to be in a cage, and hang out with us, And there's a sentence I wrote in the book that really shocked me when I wrote it. It was a couple of sentences, and it was, they don't need us. They don't need to see us. We have nothing to teach them. This is about birds. And when I wrote those sentences, I felt very shocked as a human being, My human centre of things kind of went, what? They don't need us. They don't need to see us. We have nothing to teach them at all. They might use our buildings sometimes, the way swallows will use our building to build their own nests on. They might use us in that way. But if we all disappeared tomorrow, I think the birds would probably just have a gigantic sigh of relief. And they've finally gone. Thank God, Their migrations from, England to South Africa would continue. They'd continue building nests and breeding and doing exactly all the same things that they ever did, except we wouldn't be here, I think in a way we need them more, you feel such pleasure and joy often looking at a bird, or a bird's nest, or hearing a blackbird sing, or, another kind of bird. Perhaps I was walking back from my cafe in Elwood this morning, and there was a cattle egret had suddenly arrived in the Elwood Canal, which is like a crane, pure white, really beautiful bird, just kind of walking along in some sort of noble way, and it really gives you a sort of a thrill, It's hard to really analyse why, but it sort of does. You feel pleased and you feel kind of affirmed. I guess you feel like you've just got that little touch with nature that, that's somehow rather special.